and welcome to Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond, hosted by Mark Kaler. My name is Penka Jane, podcast deckhand and longtime listener. We'd thank you to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. Here's today's catch.
Hello guys, and welcome back to another installment of Galley Stories, stories of the Bering Sea and beyond. I am once again your host, Mark Kaler. Been away from the mic for a while due to this COVID-19 deal that we've been going through, but we're returning today up in Kotzebue, Alaska with Captain John Rae. John, how are you today?
I'm good, doing good.
Captain, for various reasons, pilot, some people would call it a bush pilot up here in Kotzebue, Alaska, in the Arctic Circle, we'll add, and also of your vessel, the Stingray. So where were you born and what brought you into the commercial fishing industry, or where did you get the values that brought you into it?
Wow, well, it's all like everybody else's story, long story. You know, I was born in Minnesota, and where most of my relatives are there, I guess me and my brothers, we were raised on a mink ranch to begin with, and back in the 50s, until the distemper epidemic hit pretty much, and then Dad moved the mink out to the west coast to Puget Sound, and that's where I fell in love with the water. I believe I was like third or fourth grade, and during our summers, Mom and Dad worked, and us kids were pretty much left alone. And to work on the water, or to run around on the water, you know, back and forth on Hood Canal, was just a kid's paradise. You know, eating raw clams and oysters every day was a dream. You know, it was a dream come true. So that's where it all started. And then Dad had picked up a little boat. We'd go oyster hunting on the weekends, and that's where it all started for me.
What part of the Puget Sound?
Hoodsport, and then, you know, we'd catch the tides on inner tube. We'd sit on inner tubes and float the tides. So we'd float all the way down, which was about 5 miles down to Lillywop, and we could make it back on the next tide before Dad would get off work. And yeah, it was pretty wild. And we'd have to be back before Dad found out, because that'd be the end of the inner tubes.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and then he worked for the Forest Service, and so on a lot of the weekends we would go up to the lookout towers that they had up on the Hamma and near Quilcene, I guess, and we'd get to spend a night in a lookout tower, and it's quite an adventure for a kid.
Now, was this because he was working and took you guys with him, or it was extracurricular, just to get you out in nature?
Yeah, he was fire control officer for the Forest Service, and so he had his duties was summertime was to watch over the forest, make sure that the burns weren't getting out of hand, because he controlled all the burns. And on the weekends, he still wanted to keep track of them, so he would take us kids with him. And of course, we couldn't venture very far away, you know, but he'd let us take our fishing rods with us, and we'd hit all the streams, you know, the other kids couldn't hit because some of that land was locked up. And you know, I had 5 brothers, so that, you know, we were like a little tribe running around there. It was fun. It was a lot of fun growing up where we did. Then later on, he transferred to Oregon, and he took a job with the Mount Hood district, and then we lived there for a couple of years, and then by then I was getting out of high school, and I ended up on the east side of the mountain there, and ranching and working for farmers up until the time I went, pretty much till the time I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
in short, that's I had a real adventurous life because I was able to get out in the country like most kids couldn't. Dad took us to all the extreme places. All the burns that the Forest Service did, where people couldn't get up to, because the roads were blocked and stuff. And we hiked the Cascade Range. I don't know how many times I hiked the High Cascade Mountain Trail. It was just a passion that I had. It was always being outdoors, and I'd take my dog with me. Dad would drop me off, sometimes 10 miles from home. The first time we did it, we just looked at a map, and he says, "Well, I'll drop you off here, and you'll be able to walk home. By the time I'm off work." Well, it was good thinking, but it was wrong because the trail, even though it was 10 miles as a crow flies, the trail was like 35 miles.
Oh.
So me and Bouncer, my dog, we spent the night up on the mountain, and of course the whole Forest Service.
How old were you?
I was probably, at that time, 15 or 16. 15, I think.
And in the 5 boys, where were you at in that?
I was a third.
You sure he wasn't just trying to get rid of you?
Makes you wonder sometimes. Yeah, some of the places, some of the situations I got into was not easy for any kid. I don't think. You learn to find logs to cross some of the rivers. Like up there where we were, it was a Sandy River, the Upper Sandy River, and the Zigzag River, and those are high mountain, fast running rivers. And I and my older brothers, we were probably too much adventurous than we should have been. We did things that I don't think kids should have been doing. I wouldn't let my kids do that.
Do you think that's what drove you to end up how you are today? Because it sounds to me, when you're explaining your childhood, that it's much how I view you today. I still think you're after that adventure.
My wife thinks so, and my kids think so. Some of the things, I even wonder myself, some of the places I've gone on snow machine, I've done it by myself. I was kind of I enjoy being with people, but I enjoy being alone, doing things alone. And, my trap line round trip was probably near 190 miles round trip. So it's, it's close to 100 miles one way, close to 100 miles the other way, coming back. And I had 2 trails that I would run. And I was taking my oldest son with me sometimes when he was 6. And makes me wonder why I did it sometimes. I just wanted him to experience some of the things that I wanted to experience. And
you ever kick him off the snowmobile 10 miles from home and tell him to walk and you beat him?
No, but he left me one time.
Really?
Yeah, and lucky it wasn't too far. He didn't go too far. He was only 3 years old. He was ptarmigan hunting with me. It was near 30 below zero. We were out just behind town here, and I would always let him turn the snow machine around. And when I went to retrieve a ptarmigan one time, I heard the snow machine take off, and I looked back, and there he was going. And you can't hear on a snow machine, but I was hollering at him, and I started running after him and trying to run after him in that snow. It was just, you can't do it very far. And pretty soon, about 5 minutes later, here he comes driving back, standing up, looking over the windshield. "I'm coming, Dad. I was just turning." I could hear him hollering. Boy, I was mad. He could see the look on my face.
I was just turning around a mile up the road.
I was just turning around, Dad. I was just turning around. Boy, yeah.
Well, we got ahead of ourselves because you're from Oregon to Alaska. It's quite a step.
Yeah. Oregon to Alaska, and then went to college, studied radiology and welding, non-destructive testing. You know, it was during the pipeline era, so I wanted to get involved with the inspection of the pipeline, or working on the pipeline, you know, for whatever it's worth, and that was the route that I took, and then from there I traveled a lot all over Alaska, and ended up meeting a girl in Unalakleet on the west coast of Alaska, and then from there, from just going over there, and I also had a couple good friends there, and they got me involved in fishing, building boats and fishing, and then that just brought back my old passion, being on the water, and to this day, that's what I'm doing, and I've got no regrets. I've done well on the water. I got into herring when the herring industry was young, and very profitable. It was a lot of fun, a lot of fast money. Big learning experience too, being on the water, and you hit some big surf out there and stuff I wasn't used to, but you learn real quick, and once you learn it, it's just in your blood. You can't get rid of it. You can't just drop an anchor and do something else. It's all of a sudden your life, and I invested a lot of money into it, and a lot of time, and then end result is a lot of people start relying on you. When you start building boats and fixing boats and stuff, you have the whole community coming to you when it's boating season. It's just no rest. The phone never dies. It's just ringing all the time, and of course the wife don't like it. That's the worst part about it. You get flack from her, and I feel bad about that too. It took a lot of time away from my family, but I've always looked at it like I created this style of mine, and people here in Kotzebue relied on me, I guess, a lot to fix their problems, and I just feel obligated to help them for some reason.
Yeah, you've been here for quite a few years. I mean,
close to 40 years. Close to 40 years, yeah. See, I moved up here, and it's harder for me to remember because I was working here. Before I moved here. That's how I got here. I really liked it up here. I liked the style, the lifestyle. I liked the terrain, and the people. Just they were always good to me. They always treated me real good, and so I think I moved up here in 81 or 82.
This is a pretty remote place in comparison to Oregon, and I don't try to use the knowledge that I already have of someone I'm interviewing. But the other day you were telling me, and this is important for our listeners. A lot of our
I know what you're going to say already.
How cold it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of our listeners see Alaska as it is. We all see it as beautiful and awesome because it is, but we all picture it in the summer. And so give us your experience of that cold.
It gets cold, and I know what you're driving at, because I told you the other day that I don't like cold weather.
Yeah.
And I'll take it back. It's not that I don't like cold weather. It's that I don't like getting cold. I don't like feeling cold. And my come back to you was, because you thought it was pretty funny, was you dress for it. And you put on long johns, or you put on insulated pants and coveralls, and if you can't dress for it, you're going to be miserable. And if you don't dress for it right when you're out there, you're not going to last long, And so my theory is, you can put on as much clothes as you want, because you can always take them off. You get hot, and everybody starts working out there, and it starts getting hot, so you start shedding clothes, and that's the way around it. When I took my kids out there, and I got to tell you, my kids are some of the toughest. They're as tough as any kid up here, and they learned really quick, from getting cold. There's no how do you, I can't think of the right word right now, but you just dress warm. You dress as warm as you can. You go out, and as things start changing, you take a jacket off, you take a vest off. It's the worst case scenario is getting frostbite, and even perishing out there because you weren't dressed properly. And that's one of the first things you learn up here. Kids that grow up here learn it.
You told me the other day,
quick.
If I get too cold, I stop and I start a fire.
Oh yeah.
And you were teaching your kids the same thing. If you're that cold, stop.
Yeah. When I carried my kids with me on the snow machine, even in the boat, I mean, if they get cold and we're on the river or whatever, and they get cold, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. I mean, even people that I've taken out, it's nothing to get embarrassed about. Some people can take cold, some people can't. And, either you stop and stand by a fire, or you stand by a heater or whatever. But it's no fun being cold. And I'm the first to admit it. When I get cold, I tell somebody, man, let's stop and warm up. And I had my kids on my snow machine. I just say, if you get cold, tap on the top, tap on my back, and we'll stop. And it's always a headache when you're trying to get someplace. We travel long distances just to camp. It's 30 miles. And when you're doing that in 20 below zero weather, or even colder, it doesn't get as cold now as it did then. We don't see very few days 30 below around here. And it used to be all winter long. And but I'd always tell my kids, just tap on my back, and we'll stop and warm up a little bit. And so you dress right, do the smart thing when you got to, and don't try and show anybody how tough you are, because you're going to end up with frostbite, or you're going to end up with parts frozen that don't work anymore. And that's, nobody wants that.
You mentioned something that hasn't been brought up before on our podcast, and that is, and you just mentioned it in passing, going to camp. A lot of folks don't know, when you're up in a remote area like this, what does that mean, going up to the camp?
That's camp is my safe place. It's my family's safe place, because when we go up there, there's no phone, there's no our cell phones very, very seldom ever work up there. I've got one that, depending on the weather or whatever, we can maybe get a text out occasionally, maybe one a day. It seems like it's never a conversation you can hold. And so when we go up there, like I said, that's our safe place. Nobody's bothering us unless they happen to stop by, and then it's always fun to greet somebody at camp, because they're usually cold, or they got a little nip to them, and so we warm up with a cup of coffee or a warm cup of soup, and they're happy, you're happy, you have a good conversation, and they're on their way, and then you're back just dealing with your family again, one-on-one. And my wife and I, we go back there by ourselves. especially springtime. We spend spring up there together by ourselves during breakup, waiting for the river ice to go out, and it's just our special time to fall in love again. I mean, that's what we do. Is just we're just like we're kids again, spending time alone.
She probably drags you up there to lock you down because you're always running when you're in town.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So camp is not a campfire. Can you describe your camp to us?
Yeah, I built a log cabin up there. It's a 2-story, not very big. It's probably about 900 square feet, 2-story, and 400 down below and 400 up above there. But nothing fancy. Just a log style cabin, and we've got a smaller cabin that we built to stay in while we're working on the bigger place. But it's nice. I bought a sawmill and so I get to play around with that. I love making lumber and stuff like that, and we can go ice fishing up there on the river wintertime, and we've got a slough out back. We're near the mountains. There's trees up there. Like, there's no trees here in town. If you're familiar with Kotzebue, like you are now, you look around, there's no trees, but there's plenty of trees up.
It's good berry bushes.
Upriver. Lots of berry bushes. Yeah. And we get, we're far enough out of town. We all nature's friends. We've got wolves and bears and moose and
is that where your trap line's at?
No, that's about where it starts. That's where it starts, and then I go up the Noatak River or up into the Squirrel River, and but I'm 65 now, so I'm slowing down. I'm not doing it near as hard as I used to. I mean, I used to be real avid about it, and nobody enjoyed it more than I did. I mean, I really loved doing it because just the way I grew up, I just had this passion for the outdoors and to be out there and even seeing a pack of wolves and not just going after them to kill them. A lot of times I'd just ride right beside them and watch them. It's not all about killing and trapping. It's just about enjoying and viewing what's there. And then and getting back to the cold. You get on a trip like that every weekend. You get used to it, but I would think many times coming home, this is the last year I'm doing this. What do I do this for? But next year comes around and it's just this drive, it's just like gears turning, there's something turning them and you can't stop them. They just want to keep turning. I can't quit doing it. Even at my age, I think I'll do it until I drop. At some point, not like I did when I was younger. I won't do the 200-mile round trip thing, but
You'll go out in the backyard though and check that trap.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Well, you fish every opening. I mean, you're aggressive still. But before we go too far into the fishing and where you're at today, what made you get your pilot's license? Because again, you have a plane, you fly. Was it the remoteness here, or what caused that? Is there a story there?
No story really. It's just another thing. I've always my main goal in life was I've always told my children, and it was learn all you can learn. And I've argued with my wife about this. she wants me to sit and spend more time with the family, and she, which I would like to say, yeah, that's what I want to do. I mean, I do want to do it, but there's just this drive that I see somebody do something, and and if it looks interesting, I want to learn it. I'm going to learn it. It's just going to happen, It's just, I see something that I just have this thing in me. I want to learn everything I can learn in this life. I love life, and I just want to learn everything that I can learn. Even if I'm not the best at it, I still want to do it.
Of the gist of it, at the very least.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I flew around with a few guys, and we went fishing way out in the boonies, and here I am back with my childhood life again, They'd fly me out there, and we're in the middle of no man's land, and we're catching trout that are, 20 pounders, and I'm just going, man, this is a blast. This is living.
The plane became your new float tube.
Yeah. So, now all of a sudden, I gotta have one of these, and then I gotta learn how to fly it, and and of course you ain't gonna have one if you can't learn to land it. So, but that didn't come easy. Trying to find somebody to teach you how to fly up here is tough, and so the end result is you just teach yourself. I was taxiing around and caught a gust of wind when I was taxiing around a little too fast, and away I went. Oh shoot! Now I got to learn how to land it.
Was that your first time in the air? Is that how it happened?
That was my solo trip. Yeah, it was. I had about 4 hours of instruction, and my instructor was the one that actually said, "Well, man, John," he says, I think you're ready to start flying, And
after 4 hours.
Yeah.
He must have been a lot like your dad.
He was a young fella. He was young, and but he was a commercial pilot himself, and an instructor, and he saw the drive that I had, that I wanted to learn how to fly, and I bought a plane before I knew how to fly, and rest is history. It just it all happened pretty quick.
Oh, now I want to hear about it. Let's get into detail. You're taxiing.
Yeah, I was taxiing, and it was just a little bit of crosswind, I was kind of fooling around with myself, telling me I can do this, and all of a sudden it just lifted up, and when it lifted up, I was a little bit crossy, and I was scared to touch down again because I thought I'd lose it, and so I just firewalled it, and up I went.
What's going through your mind at this point?
Oh, brother. Oh, man. Yeah, that was... it got a little hot under the seat. I remember I was pretty flush, and I flew down the coast. I flew around for about 3 hours, I guess, just burning fuel. I didn't want to land with a bunch of gas on board. And so I flew around until I was pretty light, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning when I landed. I didn't want anybody around.
Was that here in Kotzebue?
That was here in Kotzebue, yeah.
So what time of year was it? Was it daylight all the time? Because it's that way up here. It's like...
It was September. It was September, and it was getting dark about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was worried about that too. I mean, it wasn't dark, but the sun goes down, and so I was just wondering when. I kept asking myself, well, when are you going to have guts to land? When are you going to have guts to land? And then finally,
Was your instructor there waiting for you still, or did he go home?
There was nobody on the runway when I landed. There was, I never saw a car moving. I came in on the other end of town where nobody could see me, and I pulled up short. And you know what? That was probably one of the best landings I ever made to this day.
Really?
It was, I touched down and it was just so soft you couldn't feel it touch. And of course, the bolder you become, you more aggressive you become, and you put it down when you shouldn't put it down, and you learn your aircraft a little better. But yeah, when you're scared to death, and you take all the precautions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's get back to the fishing side. So did you start your real fishing career here in Kotzebue then, or where did it start for you?
No, it actually started. Well, I'd say it started in Norton Sound. I started herring fishing down there, and that's when I knew that I was going to become a fisherman. And I built a boat. I fished with my brother-in-law and a friend, and
which Mark? Which brother-in-law?
No, Tony down there. I started fishing with Jim Tweedo to begin with, down in Unaclate, and then for a year, for the first summer, and that was while I was dating my wife. Then we got married, and then I fished with my brother-in-law, Tony, and then I built my own boat after we were married, and I started fishing for myself, got my own permit, and started tendering because the boat was big enough to tender with. I went down to the Yukon River and started buying fish with a fellow by the name of Jack Schulteis down there, and then I brought it back up here and started tendering for a couple fellows who worked for Whitney Fidalgo, and then by then I was into fishing salmon up here. Bought a permit up here and built myself a salmon skiff for up here, and
been doing it ever since.
And been doing it ever since, yeah.
So, question I always have to ask is, do you recall your scariest moment? And normally it's at sea, but being a pilot, being a trapper, being a father, a fisherman. Do you recall your scariest moment that you've experienced?
Well, I've had some scary ones. I've had some real scary ones. Crabbing, I had a bad one. We were in a 26 footer. I had a couple friends with me, and we went out to pull pots. We were about 36 miles from town. The wind kicked up, and we knew it was kind of windy, but we didn't realize what was going to happen. And it kicked up to, it was gusting 40. I think it was blowing 36 to 38 by the time, and we turned around, and that was, I felt safe because I was in a good skiff, but it was still, and I was at the helm, so I know what my capabilities are, and but it was still, the waves were big. They were probably close to 28, 30 footers out there. They were big.
In a skiff.
Yeah, and they were cresting. I took one over the ass end of the boat that was not good, but still it didn't really dawn on me. We were coming back, so we were going with the waves. That really didn't dawn on me how bad it really was, but it was bad. I would never put anybody in that situation again. But And then I was in an airplane one time. We were coming out of Anchorage, going through Rainy Pass, and we hit a lenticular cloud at about 10,000 feet, going over the peak of some mountains. That was probably hands down the scariest moment of
What's
my
a
life.
lenticular cloud?
That's kind of a cloud that's this particular one was rotating. It was kind of like a sideways tornado. It was, it's a turbulent type of it's just turbulence, and it was spinning kind of sideways like a tornado. And we were loaded pretty heavy in a 180. Me and a good pilot, one of the best pilots I know. And I was so glad that I was with him. He got us out of that. But just
Were you the pilot initially? He was.
No, he was flying. I fell asleep and on the way back, and I just happened to wake up, and we were about a minute and a half away from that cloud, and I was looking at it, and I thought, what the heck? That's a weird looking cloud. And I asked him, I says, Robert, what kind of cloud is that? And he was just kind of focused on flying and wasn't really paying attention. And when he realized that we were headed for this cloud, he immediately turned, we just banked out of it. And I don't think it was probably 10 seconds later, that plane was thrown around like like a toy. It was just, I was looking at the wings were bouncing up and down. I mean, they were flexing like a piece of paper. It was just unbelievable. Our heads were banging on the top of the airplane. It the first time about knocked me out. And Robert was a little guy, and his head he had more room. I mean, we were strapped into our seats, and we were still banging up against the top of the cabin. It was the most frightening thing I've been through. That's probably the scariest thing in my life. And I've been in wrecks. I've wrecked snow machines doing 70 and vehicles, and nothing compared to the fear that I had that we were going down. And that, it was because you're visualizing it all before it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
I think we've all been in planes and thought, boy, that wing's moving a bit. But the way you're describing it is a bit beyond what we've experienced.
Any pilot that's been through what I just explained knows what I'm talking about. It's you feel it from your toenails to the tip of your head. I mean, it's just to the top of your head. It's scary. It's scary. And Robert turned after we got through it. He says, man, he says if you'd have woke up, 10, 20 seconds later, he says we probably wouldn't have been here. It was just it was that close. It was that close.
Would you change anything about your life?
Oh, would I change anything about my life? Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think that I have enjoyed everything I've done, and I don't regret it. But I think that if I was going to do it all again, I would, because just for the single fact that I just recently lost a son, I think that knowing what I know now, I would want to do something where I had spent more time with my children growing up. Mine was a pretty, I don't want to say private life, but mine was a life of, even though I supported my family real well, and it was hard getting started when we first came up here, working for $12 an hour and just trying to make, and when your rent payment alone is was $1,400 a month, and then you got to buy stove oil and electricity on top of it and feed your family. It was hard to make a living. I mean, it was absolutely paycheck to paycheck. And I think that's what got me working so hard throughout my life here, was I learned real quick that whatever I could do after work was just better quality of living for the family. And so I regret putting my wife into a situation, where I had to work all the time. She took care of the kids like no mother has ever taken care of kids. She's been the best mother that I can think of, and she always wanted the best for the kids and did a damn good job with them. And it's I don't mean to make it sound like I didn't spend time with them. I did. I spent a lot of time with them, but not as much as I think that I should have, I guess.
So every day that you fish, you have your daughter with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, she's always with you. And then Malcolm is fishing.
Mm-hmm.
He's a solo fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to go out on his own. I asked him the other day, I said, where's your crew? He says, I just do it myself. I said, it'd be awful hard. He says, yeah, but somebody's got to get the work done anyway. It might as well be me. So is he getting that from you? Isn't that the values you've instilled in your children?
Yeah, I don't know if you heard some of the stories, when I first started fishing, I was a solo fisherman. I fished, of course I had a 26-foot skiff, and, if a guy can't handle a 20-foot or 26-foot skiff by himself, I had a roller in the front and a roller in the back, and I just drove through the net if I had to. If I couldn't handle it, I'd just fire up the motor and use it for my other helper. And but fishing to me, commercial fishing to me, was always easy. It was good money. And it's hard, if you want to put in the hours, you can make a lot of money. If you want to just be a lazy fisherman, then you're going to make a little bit of money and not. It's all what you put into it and how hard you want to push it. If you're not catching fish and you want to go look for fish then and find them, and if you're too lazy to do that, some guys will set their net and they won't pull it the whole period. Man, there's times I pull my net 4 and 5 times a day in an 8-hour period. And I don't like doing it, but you're not making any money sometimes. And like the last couple periods, that I've fished, I'm just kind of going, what the heck? But it's just like this year, there's no fish to find, and I don't, my daughter's really good about doing everything I ask her. I couldn't ask for a better helper on my boat than my daughter. She's as good a help as I've ever had, ever. And I've had some of the strongest guys. My oldest son, he's the strongest man I've ever been around. I mean, ever been around. And she's no worse than he was. He was strong. He could do all this stuff quicker maybe, but she's just tenacious. I don't even have to ask her to do stuff. She knows exactly what to do. My children were all not raised fishing, but many times they wouldn't, they'd sit on the beach screaming and hollering to mom that they wanted to go with me, so I'd put them on the boat and they'd watch the flounders flopping around on the deck, and just sat there and giggled, at that while I was
those
fishing.
weren't working moments. Those were moments spent with your kids.
That was family time for me. Yeah.
I'm sure it was for them.
Yeah.
If you asked them now, I would guarantee it was for them.
My wife didn't consider it that. She said you're working. But we, and even my wife, a lot of times back in those days, she'd sit on the beach watching me, and
still. I can always tell when you're going to be coming in, because she'll be parked down there with the grandkids. She'll be parked down there, and we're like, oh, John Rae must be on his way in, because there she sits.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I notice they're always there when I get there.
Yeah.
But
I figured you'd call them and said you were on your way.
I don't. No, I don't.
Because it's like that kind of clockwork.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter, she might be texting them.
Mm-hmm.
I know she has sometimes. I don't know how often she does that, but I don't pay attention to the
We
phone.
can always tell when you're coming. Because she'll be parked down there.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Anything else you want to share with us, John?
Oh, I don't know.
Any good advice for young Oregon guys that are thinking about running up to negative 40-degree weather?
Well, I still have friends down Oregon, and I'll just close by saying that when I go down there and talk to them, and of course they all got kids now, and some of the younger fellas, you know, they always ask me what I'm doing up there, you know, and they'd like to experience Alaska, you know. Common thought for people down in the States is Alaska's always frozen, you know, and it's not. When I show them pictures and they're going, gee, where's all the ice? And I go, there's no ice up there this time of year. It's just like summertime down here, you know. It's you know, it's not 80 or 100-degree weather.
No, it's more comfortable.
Down
70.
there. I says, nice thing is up there. I says, you can be walking around with a heavy shirt on. You're comfortable. You're not getting sunburned. You know, you're not down here. You know, you got a t-shirt on and you're miserable, hot and sweaty, and up there you're just body temperature. You know, you're just having. I mean, sometimes it gets cool and you throw a light jacket on. You know, but there's nothing wrong with that. I'm comfortable up here, and I tell them that, and you just see their eyes light up. You know, and man, if you ever need a fishing partner, you know, they'll say, or, you know, gee, you going bear hunting? Yeah, they always ask me if I'm going bear hunting this year or sheep hunting, you know, and they all want to experience this, you know, even though it's just a little segment of their life, they all want to experience that. And it just brings me to the realization that I'm blessed. I'm up here, and I've always thought that I've been blessed up here because I get to do all this. And when I go down there, you know, I like listening to their hunting stories, you know, because it's something I don't get involved in anymore. And so when they ask me about it, you know, I tell them, and just to watch their eyes light up and they're visualizing, you know, hiking up a hill after a sheep or just streaming after a grizzly bear, you know, the best way you can, and because it's not something that everybody's going to do, you know, try and track down when you see a bear and try and sneak up on it. That's something most people aren't going to do.
You know, this year for bear season, you didn't get one, but you said you had so much excitement you were trying to run him down with a four-wheeler. Explain to me how you felt like an 18-year-old again. I think it was.
I was on a snow machine. So I don't remember the conversation very well. For some reason, I remember I must have told you I was on a snow machine. We were going to camp, and I was on one, and he was close to camp, so I ran him off, and we got into the trees and stuff, and it gets exciting. But
yeah, how you told me was I had asked you, did you get your bear this year? You said no, but I had a lot of fun trying to.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I just had my 44 with me for one thing, and trying to ride with one hand, you know, through the trees and getting stuck and
cowboying him out.
Yeah, it's just something, you know, some things you don't want to talk about.
Oh, gotcha.
You know?
But didn't get him. The one that got away.
It wasn't that big anyway. It was more of a just run him off type thing because I don't want him around camp.
You get him a lot up there?
Not lately. We've had problems with bears, and we learned, you know, they taught us how to deal with them, and we lock up we lock up pretty solid. Bottom line is, if a bear does want in your place, there's very little you can do to tell him no. You're not going in there, because he will. He'll figure out some way. He'll tear your wall out. I mean, I've seen him tear the side of a cabin completely off, and I mean, pull the plywood right out, go in one wall and come and go, for some reason, who knows why, go out another wall, not a window. I mean, we had him go through the door and through the windows, but I mean to tell you, I've seen them where they've gone in a wall and gone right through another wall, for who knows why. They're just,
that's where he wanted to go.
yeah, it's just, they're possessed or something. Who knows what it is.
Okay. Anything else you want to share, John?
No, it's fun talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to share with us.
Yeah. We'll be seeing more of you out there in the water, I'm sure.
Yep. So, all right, guys. This has been Galley Stories from Kotzebue, Alaska, in the Arctic Circle, with Captain John Rae. And we will see you next time. Hopefully not as long between episodes as it's been. Again, with this COVID thing, we have not been recording at all. But we'll get back on the horse. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to Galley Stories. We hope you like what the net brought in. Please leave us a review on iTunes. Whether you like it or not, we're not fishing for compliments. Look us up on Facebook and Twitter too, and reach out to us at galleystories@gmail.com.